Hello, my name is Christina Nesrat-Poor, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my input and my thoughts from the person colleague study from 2022 regarding agile software development and user experience design. There were a few takeaways and surprises that I wanted to touch on. The first one being upfront design and how that strengthens agility within the process. Um, it was interesting to see how upfront design just allows the teams to, like the software team and the user experience team, to start anticipating changes before anything becomes too vast along the way, where it starts to become a bit more costly. And I thought that this was I'm going to be completely honest here. I'm going to go off track of my initial outline, but a lot of it just like makes sense. Like, why haven't we done this from the beginning? You know what I mean? Like, if it just makes sense to have two different teams of people that are working on one sole project to have a unified vision of what we're going to do before this starts. Like why wouldn't we come together right at the very beginning and try to think about, what are some flaws, what are some caveats that we might run into? What could we possibly do right now to decrease and mitigate the amount of risk along the way? Upfront design just completely makes sense to me. And then, risk that includes costs. Like these costs are not minor costs. These are great costs. Um, so this just honestly it resonated with me. To me, it sounds like I know common sense isn't a real thing necessarily, because you have to learn it for it to be common sense. But in my opinion, it just clicks. So that's kind of how I felt when I was reading through this segment. But yeah, that's just my off script kind of take. Um and the next being how like working in unison or working in parallel as it's described in the article helps continue that momentum along like the production. It's just interesting, yeah. If as long as people from both teams are able to, simultaneously continue to work together rather than like sequentially, it just allows people to stay slightly a bit ahead um, as they're continuing to work through these processes. So as developers are continuing to build on current features, the designers are able to handle and work alongside with them. It just makes sense. Also, it kind of could just make sense as me going off script again. It could kind of just make sense to me because now that I've read it and understand it, it makes sense. It also confirms my prior beliefs and biases. So, so I also want to preface with that as well. And then lastly, how mutual adjustment is the core of agile coordination. And it was talked about heavily. And how agile coordination, it's continuous and it's at times informal in collaboration style, and how teams adjust and their roles and decisions are kind of based on real time needs. Um, and yeah, I mean, having worked in the workforce, also like I'm gonna say the favorite line of like, yeah, it makes sense of production, output, all these things are continuously like nitpicked and worked upon because yes, while we do want to make mistakes along the way in order to learn from them and grow and then create a better product and greater output, um, the act of informally getting together and just talking about things, sometimes something sparks us and we have a crazy idea but it works. And I just think that the whole system here and those three, like upfront design and then working in parallel and then mutual adjustment, just allows for that agility without a solid framework that's telling you, we have to do these steps in this time, these steps in this time, and then who knows, by the time we get to our third sprint or our third stage, it's not what we expected. And I think that this study and this article really showcases how cross-functional collaboration is vastly important from start to finish. And I think that's one thing that we've also leaned heavily on while we were in this class, and still are in this class actually. But yeah, that's kind of my like passionate take on it. But yeah, it just like it clicks to me. It makes sense. And then in regards to applying this to prior work experience, I mean, I honestly, until I took this course, no idea what agile methodology was. Like I genuinely didn't know. But what I learned from these modules so far is that I've been enacting it in prior workplaces. I used to work in a mental health treatment center, and I was working in every department at one point. But what I learned is that there's no formal framework to do anything, and that each process truly does start, no matter what level I was at in that time. It always starts with understanding the company and the stakeholders. What do our executive teams want? Like, how can I see a problem arise and want to fix it in that aligns with their goals? That's the like moral of the story. If I like, I'll give an example of, you know, we introduced surveys to assess how our clients were liking their group therapy sessions. And I have to do this in a HIPAA compliant way and make sure that, you know, the way we're administering these surveys, the way we're collecting the data is all beneficial. And I worked alongside in the beginning with leadership to find a way that it would just make sense, that is compliant with all of our policies and regulations as well as HIPAA. And I was continuously working on this survey alongside with them every step of the way. Any question that I had, just run it by in case, or test it out and ask for forgiveness later. But nothing to the point where I've created a whole project that has to get scrapped. I'm asking for input from every department, from clients during like huge meetings, and from other staff that may not be as involved in the group therapy aspect, but they know the clients, they know how the whole system works, and input from other places is definitely well needed. And in return, I got a more highly efficient um, and easier to manage project and survey that did seem beneficial and did prove to be beneficial. Um, and that really just stemmed from what I mentioned earlier in the article or earlier in my video of upfront design and then working in parallel and mutual adjustment. So, while I didn't know exactly what agile methodology was or how to enact it, I kind of just did it. And now that I have a term for it, um, makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, those were my takes. A little unhinged at moments, but yeah, I thought this was a really cool article and I learned a lot. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.